All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Okay, let's go talk technicals here. And we last week we did four of our classes. Our first four classes, kind of building what is technical analysis, looking at perhaps the most important factor, support and resistance, and then going and breaking down the different types of indicators from oscillators to trend to volumetric indicators, and then kind of breaking down some of the indicators that were developed by Wells Wilder and how he used those in kind of a systematic trade, and some of the substitutions and the adaptations and some of the things that we use here at Trader Minute. Today I want to look at simply one question. Okay, I want to just simply take a look at one question when it comes to technical analysis. Okay, and it's the question that I constantly ask every time I look at a chart. And that question is this move technically significant? Is there any significance in a move? Okay? And when we look at a chart, okay, when we look at the price action, let's take Apple for example. Okay? If you own Apple stock, okay, and you're a long-term holder for a couple years, and you watch Apple pull back here in August from 460 down to 455, you say yawn, snooze, who cares, right? It doesn't matter. It's very insignificant. Your plan is to hold it for a bunch of years. You're not really worried about it. You're just kind of rolling with it. Okay. But let's say you're a call option trader. You own calls, and you get in right here at 500 here in September. And 2 days later, you're dealing with Apple at 460. You're going, geesh, that really hurt. That was significant, right? That was technically significant for you for being a swing trader. So while even this move for the long-term holder, very insignificant here in September, for the short-term holder, a lot of significance. Okay, so in many ways, the question of is something technically significant comes down to what's your time period? What's your holding period? How are you looking at it? What's your trade setup? Okay, as far as whether it's significant. A long-term buyer of Apple looks at today's price action on Apple and says, yawn, snooze, who cares? Okay, where a short-term option player says, you know what? This is today, if I own calls, today's painful, or you own puts, today, yippee, right? Okay. So a lot of that really kind of comes down to, your time period, who you are, what type of trade, and how you're looking at that stock. Okay. I want to take a look at the three factors that I look at whenever I'm assessing whether a move is significant or not. Okay. And this doesn't matter. Time period on this doesn't matter. Okay, whether you're a long-term holder, short-term trader, an options trader, or a day trader, these three things all come into play in one shape or form. Okay? The first thing, okay, let me just click annotate here, and I'll write these out. But number one, when I'm asking the question, okay, let me write the question here. Is the move technically significant? Okay. Number one, the first thing that you look at is catalyst. Okay. We have to realize that most of the market isn't looking at a MACD or a moving average or a stochastics. Okay, most of the market is not looking at anything like that. Okay, most of the market is playing off of dividend yields and PE ratios and growth rates and other fundamental type metrics. Okay, that's what most of the market's trading off of. What does that mean? That means a lot of the short-term movements can be very insignificant, especially when there's no catalyst. Okay? One of the mistakes that technical traders will often make is they think, well, everybody's looking at the same thing I'm looking at. Everyone's looking at the volume. Everyone's looking at the Bollingers. Everyone's looking at the... No, that's not the case. Okay, in fact, technical traders are in the minority as far as what they're looking at, and even technical traders can't agree on what's significant and what's not. And so, if we're looking at what's significant, it has to go a little bit beyond the technicals. Okay, and that is looking: is there a catalyst? Okay, is today's move in Bank of America significant? Okay, let's pull up Bank of America. Is it significant? Absolutely. Why? Well, we could argue all the technicals, right? We could argue various technicals, but there's a fundamental action here. There's a catalyst here that makes the action significant. Okay? Now, let's say you're one of the technical traders that says, you know what? All the news, everything's already priced in. Don't got to pay attention to the news. Don't need to pay attention to earnings, upgrades, downgrades, fundamentals, or anything like that. You say, well, so to see a catalyst, you're probably not going to see it. Well, one way to see the catalyst is through volume. Okay? And generally, moves that happen on volume are more technically significant than moves that happen on no volume. Okay? High volumes tend to mark trend highs and lows. Okay, or breakouts, different things like that. Okay, high volumes tend to mark trend highs and lows, whereas low volumes, okay, tend to mark continuation. Okay, tend to mark continuation. What do we mean? We'll take a look at Apple down here. Look at the volume come in here in July. Okay, volume actually started coming in end of June. Okay, heavier volume started to come in. What's that heavier volume a sign of? It's a sign that, hey, we may be close to some sort of trend shift. Now we have volumes going the other way. Okay, now we have a trend shift. Okay, well, as long as the volumes stay light through this trend, you're saying to yourself, who cares? Light volumes, a lot of people will look, well, there was no volume, that's bad. No. You need volume at the top or at the bottom, but on the continuation, on that move, who cares? You don't need volume. Stocks can go up a lot on no volume. As long as there's volumes at the beginnings, that's what's significant. Okay? That's what's significant. Where I get worried is if I'm in the upside on something and heavy volumes start coming in after a big run. Okay? Let's go back here to Bank of America. Look at the volume starting to come in today. I mean, look at the volume right back here in November. Okay? Bank of America moves lower. Now we get the upside move on volume. We get the continuation of volume. Okay? And now it pulls back on lighter volumes. Look at the volume that came in on this uptick. What does that mean? Well, that means Bank of America is likely to go higher, and any pullback is very insignificant. Okay, is very insignificant unless we're talking about a catalyst or some sort of major volume. Okay, so we don't get any of that. Now we get a catalyst, we get volume to the upside. That's just further confirmation of, okay, Bank of America still has upside in it. Okay, so two kind of things. They're kind of similar, catalyst and volume, to determine whether something is technically significant, whether a move matters or not. Okay, take a look across the market today. There are a lot of stocks that are moving on no volume and on no catalyst, and you go, well, is there any significance here? Okay, and we'll go out and look at that. The third thing, in a lot of moves, the major moves are going to have catalyst, or they're going to have volume. They're going to have something like that come in. The minor moves won't. Okay, and a lot of times you're not going to. You'll go through periods of the market where 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. There's nothing major. Where you're going, man, I wonder if the jobs report's going to cause any action in the market. And you're saying, gee, what do you do? Well, it comes down to understanding. Okay. Is the stock moving in its trend, counter to the trend, okay, or consolidating? Okay. What is it? Is it moving on its trend, counter to the trend, or consolidating? Now, we looked at technical tools like the Bollinger Bands, like the ADX, to help us understand or define trend. We've looked at moving averages, trend lines, all those types of things help us to define trend. Okay, so on Apple here, what's going on? Okay, well, from a longer term basis, it's simply following the trend, right? The trend is still higher. What's this move right here? What's this move that it's making right now? Well, this is a counter trend move. Okay, it's moving lower in the face of an upward trend. Okay, in the face of an upward trend. What does that tell me? Well, that tells me I really kind of want to be looking more for a buy opportunity. When we looked at the action on Apple on Tuesday, one of the things they'd said was, I'm just not convinced it's ready to go. Why? Look at the Bollingers. Look at the Bollinger Bands. Look at them contracting. Now, is the stock really ready to move, or is it just consolidating? I mean, when the stock's consolidating, the day's movements just don't matter as far as where is this stock really ready to head. Okay, look all back through here, October, November. Okay, I know some of you held calls through this time and they never moved, and they would go up a little or down a little, and it would vacillate back and forth between the, above and below the 7 and 20-day moving averages. Okay, this is a consolidation period. The action in this is very insignificant. Well, what happened? Well, you got a breakout of consolidation on good volume. That was significant. Okay, the likelihood is Apple's ready to move back on its trend. Okay, it's not that it's setting a new trend, it's going to continue with its trend. Okay, so these are the three things: catalyst, volume, and whether the stock's moving in its trend, counter to the trend, or consolidating. Many times, many times, you will see a stock that is upward trending. And let's go take a look at Nucor. Okay. Nucor has established a new upward trend, right? Okay, absolutely has established a new upward trend. If you're in Nucor the last 2 days, you're going, ouch. But at the same time, the overall trend still remains higher. And even though it's had periods of pullback, like in September, November, the overall trend remains higher. Okay, so what's this move right now? Okay, this move isn't consolidation. This is a counter trend move. Okay, this is a counter trend move. And generally, when you're looking at a counter trend move, you want to see low volumes. Okay, you want to see low volumes because the lower the volume, the less significant that move is to the broader trading context of Nucor. So watching Nucor, we watch it go down today, we watch it go down tomorrow, we watch it go down the next day, whatever it may be, as long as it goes down on lighter volumes and no real catalyst, hey, okay, we can look to buy it, we can look to be a buyer, we can say to ourselves, okay, the overall trend is higher, let's look to buy this somewhere on the counter trend. Okay. Now, some people like to say, well, I want to pick 52 or 51 or 53 and say I'll buy at this point. You'll hear me say those things a lot. Yeah, okay, 52 and a half, you're a buyer. Yeah, some traders like to do that. Okay. Other traders, okay, simply say, you know what, wake me when the downtrend reverses. Okay, so it's a counter trend move down here September, October. Okay, lighter volumes overall, not that significant. Now it starts to move back above the 7 on building volumes. Okay, they say wake me when we get to this point. There'll be a buyer at this point and ride that next wave up. Okay. So it's really, for a day trader, this is a major trend. The last 2 days is a major downtrend. For a long-term holder of Nucor, a lot of difference in the significance. So any stock that I'm trading, okay, I want to take a look at what is the What is the significance in terms of the trend? Let's take Bank of America. Okay, let's go back to Bank of America. I'm going to click annotate here. And asking Bank of America, is this technically significant? Okay, is this technically significant? Is the action on it technically significant? Okay, well, notice how it pushes up in November here on good volumes. Okay, that is significant. That's a significant move. That's where you know, okay, it's not just technical. There's something fundamental here. Investors are liking this stock. They're liking it at these. They're liking it at these levels. They're accepting of, hey, I can be building bigger positions here. But like all stocks, there's an ebb and a flow, and it starts to pull back. No volume, right? No volume. Okay, we know we have a counter move. Okay, we have a counter move. All right, it's a counter move. We want to look for a buy opportunity. Well, unfortunately, for those of us who were looking to be buyers of Bank of America, we didn't really get a good place to get in. What happened is we got a shot. We got a big shot higher. This happened on the Fed taper. Okay, Bank of America started lower and then just surged. And the option prices weren't that good. It a little too high, too fast in the short term. Okay, really tough to kind of go away from that. So then what do? Bank of America consolidates. Now I ask you this question. Is the 7-day moving average significant during this consolidation? Is the RSI significant? Is the MACD significant? Are any of these technicals really significant as Bank of America on low volume goes flat each and every day? Not at all. Absolutely not. No catalyst. Okay. One of the ways we can see that it's consolidating very easily is just by the Bollinger Bands being contracted, having narrowed. We know the chances are higher that there's nothing significant going on. Okay. So we know that there's no real significant action here. What does that mean? Well, what is the significant action? Well, the significant action has been bullish. That's where the volumes have really come in. The significant trend is bullish, which means when there's no action, we can look for an excuse to get in. Okay? Now, we have to do it properly. We have to kind of understand where our risk and reward and everything else is. But with the significance being up, and we get a period of insignificance, that's a place where you can look to be enter that trade. Could you wait for today? Sure, absolutely. You could wait for a day like today. You get the breakout, you get the volume, you get the catalyst, you got the MACD crossing up, you got great stochastics action. Yeah, you could wait for a day like today, but your risk is going to be a little bit higher because the stock's moved a little bit. Okay. So in general, as there's no volume, no catalyst, and we're in a consolidation period, any activity in the stock is insignificant. Okay, the activity on Bank of America over the last 2 weeks, entirely insignificant. Okay. Let's take FedEx. Okay, some of you stopped out of this today, and I commend you for that. Popping out of that. Is the action on FedEx significant? Okay. Is today's action significant? Absolutely. Why? Why is it significant? Okay. Well, because you're dealing with a stock that has been on a trend, right? It's been on a nice upward trend. Okay? And so we're not dealing like Bank of America with something that's been in a strong consolidation. Yeah, I mean, you could say FedEx been a little consolidation, but it is run from 135 to 144. I mean, it had a significant uptick. At that moment, we know that something's on a trend. It's going with the major trend. A break of some sort of trend measure, in this case, the 7-day moving average, says, you know what? The chances of this being more significant here are much greater than the chances of a move above and below the 7-day moving average being significant are here in September. Look how tight the Bollingers. Here in September, we're in a consolidation phase. Moves above and below the 7, who cares? Not really significant. Kind of like Bank of America over the last 2 weeks. Okay? Where now with FedEx, Bollinger's not contracting. They've been expanding, getting a reversal off of that 7, going the other way off that 7. There's significance there. Can we find many examples where it pulls back and then just shoots higher? Sure. But the downside risk grows. Okay? And I go back to something like Chesapeake, which we got out of on Monday. Okay? There's very FedEx-like action on Monday. Okay, the stock had been moving in a little bit of a trend. Yeah, the Bollingers were tight, but breaking, snapping that 7 after having triggered a trend rider, after having triggered a vibe, the risk of further downside is high there. Okay, it's high. It's very, very significant. So River Rat, yeah, good question. How do you grade volume as insignificant or volume as significant or significant? Generally, when just looking at the volume itself, you can't just say, well, at high volume it was significant or low volume it was significant. Generally, the volume goes along with the catalyst. Okay, what was the catalyst? And so anytime there's volume, I want to see what was the catalyst. Here on Chesapeake, the catalyst was earnings. I better understand what those earnings were and whether that's going to be something that could, drag it down even further. A lot of times I'll simply on the volume, I'll come down here into indicators and you can add volume, okay, to it. And you can put a 50-day moving average of the volume. So I can say, well, all right, let's put a moving average, a simple moving average of 50 on my volume. And you can say, well, any volume that's above the 50-day moving average of volume is significant. Anything less is significant. But in general, I don't like making those kind of blanket statements. It much more comes down to what was the catalyst. Okay, what was the catalyst? Now, there are 2 types of catalyst. Okay, there are 2 types of catalyst that you generally deal with. We deal with a ton of news, right? There's all types of news out there, but there's generally 2 types of catalyst. There are earnings catalysts, and there are non-earnings catalysts. Okay? As a rule of thumb, earnings catalysts have backing. They'll continue. If it's a downside earnings catalyst, it'll keep going down. If it's an upside earnings catalyst, it'll likely keep going up. Earnings catalysts are significant. When there is volume dealing with a catalyst that's somehow related to earnings, whether it be Caterpillar's building more tractors, or Caterpillar's margins are improving, or Caterpillar, whatever it might be, if it somehow goes back to earnings, there's significance. Non-earnings catalysts, they generally are very short term. An analyst that comes out and says, I'm going to take this stock from underweight to overweight, keep my price target and keep my earnings targets. I mean, the stock's going to go up because there was an upgrade, but there's no real upgrade in the earnings, just in the price. Generally, those types of catalysts are short-lived. They fade off pretty quickly. Okay? Non-earnings catalysts, things that don't affect the bottom line, lawsuits. Okay, lawsuits. A company gets sued. They get a judgment against them. They have to pay $2 billion. Okay, great. Yeah, there'll be a temporary hit, but it is likely to recover because overall, it's a non-earnings catalyst. It's not affecting their business going forward. Okay. So when looking and kind of when grading the significance of the volume, it comes down to looking at the catalyst. If there's volume with an earnings catalyst, it's highly significant. If there's volume with a non-earnings catalyst, not nearly as significant. Okay. Great question, Snag. Great question. Let me show you. Snag asked Jeff, on Chesapeake, you said you're still bullish. Why? Okay. Obviously, I'm not in the trade, right? Okay, so I'm not that bullish to be in it right here, right now. Okay. But look at the overall trend of Chesapeake. Okay. The overall trend is higher. Okay, the overall trend is higher. If you're a long-term holder of Chesapeake and it pulls back from 28.5 to 26.5, you say yawn snooze. Who cares? We even pull up a weekly chart on Chesapeake. The trend over the last 18 months, 20 months has been definitely to the upside. Fundamentally, Chesapeake's doing some fantastic things. Their earnings are growing. There are some really good things out there. What does that mean? Well, it means fundamentally I'm bullish, but I still need to pay attention to the trade action because I like to hold things a lot shorter time period. If I was looking to hold Chesapeake Energy for 2 years, today's action, who cares? Monday's action wouldn't have gotten out at all. But if I own options that I know are going to go down 50% if Chesapeake pulls back another buck, and I see it breaking the 7 or making some sort of significant move, man, I have to put that time period in check because I'm not playing with the major trend. I'm trying to play this little short-term move. Okay. So bullish longer term. Short term, I looked at Chesapeake. I priced out some of the options earlier today. Still not in a position where I'd want to be a buyer. Where would I want to be a buyer? Well, look, let it pull back. Next move above the 7. Potentially be a buyer at that point. So is it significant? Okay, catalyst, volume, and what is the move relative to the trend of the stock? Okay, look, there are a lot of times moves like this. Let me pull this move up here on Chesapeake for you. Okay. Moves like this right here. Okay, you get into Chesapeake somewhere about, let's say, right here. And you get in the next day, Chesapeake goes up, the next day it goes down, next day it goes down, next day it goes down, and you see your value bleeding a little bit. And a lot of traders will look at that and say, you know what, I got to get out, I'm bleeding value, or it's just going against me. And they'll end up getting out next 2, 3, 4 days, it pops up, and now they're looking in hindsight and saying, okay. Well, it's really easy to take out the hindsight part if every time you look at a move, you're saying, is that significant? And as long as, you can get out here. You can get out of your calls here, okay? And you could simply say to yourself, you know what, I'm getting out of them because if this thing does start to move lower, I get to a point of no return on my option. Okay, it really is a point where I would be in trouble. I'd be stuck in this trade and potentially riding a pullback back to 21 and be ugly. And if that's the reason for you getting out and it goes up the next 3 days, there's nothing wrong with your decision. Your decision back here was fine. It was correct. Okay? You can't let what happens, determine that. But if you're looking at, is this move on a technical basis significant? No, it's not. No volume, no catalyst. It's a small counter trend move, okay? But significant to with the technicals, significant to your account value. Those can be two different things that you have to kind of take into place or take into account. And so this move here on Chesapeake and getting out of Chesapeake on Monday, was that a technically significant move? Yeah, in the short term it was, breaking below the 7. But even though I'm bullish on the stock, I had to get out because even from the standpoint of the options, the risk of further down be very significant type of a loss. Okay, let's take Nucor. Okay, because we got out of Nucor on Monday. Okay, why did we get out of Nucor on Monday? Well, it didn't break the 7, did it? I mean, it still had its upward trend. Okay, it still had its upward trend. Was Monday's action technically significant? No, not at all. Okay, from a it had no volume, no catalyst, no nothing material there. But it was coming off the upper band, and worst case scenario was a pullback. And what would that do to the new core option? It would crush it. So from a value standpoint, I had to look at that and say, you know what? At this point, coming off the band, I'm risking a lot for, you know, the reward that's out there. Let's take a look here at Boeing. Okay, Boeing up 5 cents. Okay, and I got an email about the 7-day moving average on Monday. We got out on Monday. We got out of Nucor and Chesapeake on the upside, right? We were in the upside on both of those. Got out of them. Boeing broke the 7 as well. Okay, Boeing broke the 7 as well. And so why would I say out of Nucor, out of Chesapeake? Chesapeake significant break of the 7, but Boeing not really. Well, the reason with Boeing is because Boeing has been pretty much flat. Okay, yes, it's had a few ups and it's had a few downs, but overall, its action has not been a major trend. It's been in this consolidation period for quite a while. Okay, now we had signs that consolidation was ready to break and it was ready to move higher. So far, it hasn't materialized, but that's what we've kind of seen with Boeing. And so the 7-day with Boeing, whether Boeing closes above or below the 7-day moving average today, is very arbitrary and means nothing, has no significance. Okay, has zero significance. I mean, the moves back here in August, above and below the 7, mean nothing. Where once it's been on a trend and the Bollingers are starting to contract, now moves below the 7, there's some significance there. Okay, we've dealt with now a run. Now we're pulling back. There's some significance there. Okay, it's kind of like FedEx today. Schlumberger. Okay, which I bought on Tuesday at the close. Okay, and Schlumberger had a trend rider bull, was a divide bull today, pushing back below the 7. Is this move significant? Is this move significant? Well, yeah. Okay, why is it significant? Because the Bollingers have been expanding. Okay, and now to get this reversal after the Bollingers have been expanding, now this move is significant. Does it mean I have to get out? Well, no. I mean, you can make any choice. I can make any choice I want. But what I'll do is I'll say, okay, there's some significance in this move. Now I have to say, okay, where's my point of no return? Okay, where's my point of no return? I know it's first day of the market. Oil's down real big. Oil's down over 2%. Schlumberger's down 1.5%. Do I look for a snapback rally? What level do you say, okay, enough's enough? Now you have some decisions to make. Okay, but from a technical significance standpoint, yeah, this move is significant technically. Tesoro, is today's movement technically significant? Okay, think about it. No, not at all. Look at the Bollingers. I mean, Bollingers consolidating. Okay, absolutely consolidating. Have been. I mean, even this $2.50 drop on Tesoro wasn't really technically significant. Just like the move Thursday wasn't technically significant, or Tuesday wasn't technically significant. Okay, Bollinger still contracted. Now, the move on Tuesday, does that increase the probability of a breakout? Sure. And Tesoro starts to break above that upper band, we start to see the Bollingers expand. Is that significant? It would be. Okay, absolutely would be. But so far, not there. Still in this consolidation zone. Okay, so while if you own Tesoro calls, okay, you watched your call value, you rode significantly in the morning, come back nicely, and then go back down, and now you're slightly down. So there's some significance in what the option values are doing, right? But there's not a lot of technical significance in what the stock itself is doing. Take Qualcomm. Okay, Qualcomm down 60 cents. All right, and this is all this morning, right? And I've not done a lot of showing you when I'm in 5 or 6 different positions, because of the nature of the end of the year. I kind of did that on Tuesday, and so I've kind of been talking about those, showing you those here today. But this morning, as I'm looking over the different positions, and I'm going to myself, what, market breaking down. I have a lot of calls. I know that I want to lighten some of my exposure if things go against Qualcomm. What do I do? Is Qualcomm's move technically significant? Well, yeah. I mean, Qualcomm's move is technically significant, pushing below the 7. Was there a catalyst? Kind of. There was that news with Apple where, one of the products they're developing, their yields weren't as good. They had to make some manufacturing changes. Okay, so, there's some potential significance there. So yeah, market going down, tech getting hit, Qualcomm has a catalyst that could affect their earnings. Is that technically significant? Heck yeah. Okay, so what do I do? Could I just pop out? Yeah, I could just get out. Just get out and say enough's enough, leave it. No. Instead of, I generally prefer to say, you know what? Yes, there is some technical significance. If this had been a normal day, I probably would have just bailed and run. But being the first day of the year, knowing that not everything we're seeing is significant in the short term, seeing it right down at support, it basically said, okay, I'm going to hold it through the day. If it's able to hold on to this 73.25, 73.50 support zone, okay, I'll continue in it and evaluate it from there. Okay, but yes, is today's action, this morning's action, technically significant? Absolutely. Boeing, is it significant? No, not at all. None. Kihu, right? I mean, is Kihu's action significant today? Any volume? No. Any catalyst? No. And what are the Bollingers doing? They're contracting, right? I mean, they're still in a contraction period. Just no real significance here. Okay, just zero significance there for Kihu. Okay, Baidu, is there any significance in today's action? No. Baidu got the break. The Bollingers started to expand earlier this week. Okay, so the Bollingers are starting to expand. That's technically significant, and all today's doing is continuing that expansion. It's not significant as far as, okay, Baidu is now going from bullish to bearish. It's insignificant in saying Baidu turned bullish, it's still continuing bullish. There's nothing significant to change that. Yeah, Robert, Coca-Cola. Okay, here's Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola had been moving higher, right? Bollinger's expanding. Okay, Bollinger's expanding. Is today's action significant? Well, we have some pretty elevated volumes relative to what we've had. We're probably not going to have major volumes overall, okay? But there's no real catalyst that I know of for Coca-Cola. I haven't gone specifically to look at Coke, but as I've gone through the news today, haven't seen anything on the radar for Coca-Cola. Is this move technically significant? Yeah, I mean it is. Because you're dealing with a breakdown below the 7 of a stock where the Bollingers have been expanding. Does that mean Coca-Cola has to go down? No. In fact, a lot of times stocks on uptrends that make technically significant moves, all it is just saying, okay, the stock's going to consolidate for a while. Okay, the stock's going to consolidate. So, in the past, I'll take something like Coca-Cola and say, you know what, it's down a little bit much today, coming down to the lower Bollinger Band on the hourly chart. Yes, the move is something to be concerned about, but, you know what, if it breaks 40.50, I'm out, but I'm going to look for it to rebound to 41 tomorrow, and then I'll look to get out on that little rebound. And I'll simply get out, not because I'm bearish on Coke, but simply because chances are, with this type of a move, we go into some sort of consolidation mode. Okay. Yeah, you kind of see that back here in September a little bit. Coke does have a little bit of a mind of its own. Okay. But Verizon, right? Which I told you I picked some up on Tuesday afternoon. Is today's action significant? No. And even when I talked about Verizon, there's nothing technically significant here. We're in a process of contracting bands. It's right in the middle, kind of like Walmart this morning when we talked about Walmart. Flip a coin, goes up, down, to the upper band, lower band. Why'd I get in? Well, because 7 out of the last 8 years, the first day of the year has had a major uptick in the market. I didn't have any real exposure to something that was interest rate sensitive. So got into Verizon. Said, hey, if it goes to 50, I'll take it. Breaks down below 48.92, I'm out. Okay. But nothing significant there technically. Today, nothing significant either. Yeah, Paul, we looked at FedEx here, in FedEx, technically significant here. Why? It's been on an upward trend. Bollingers have been expanding, and now it's breaking the 7. Okay. Just because it's technically significant doesn't mean this is the best time to get out. Okay. In fact, a lot of times you can get a little snapback. Back to something like, as I kind of come into the hourly chart here, you can get a snapback to 142 and get out at a better price there. But on the daily chart, this action is significant for kind of a short-term trader. Look, if you're a long-term holder of FedEx, if you own the stock, you're looking to hold it for a couple years, no, the action has no significance at all. Now, even if it goes to 135, there's no significance. Okay. But as a short-term option trader, it's tough for me to want to look for a buy point here or be long the stock until there's some sort of strength that comes into it. So the 3 factors when it comes to significance, okay, the 3 factors. Number 1, catalyst, okay. Generally, earnings catalysts are significant. Non-earnings catalysts are insignificant. Okay. Second factor is volume. Okay, volume. Now, one thing I didn't mention in regards to volume that I want to bring up real quick. Volume has decreased in its significance overall. The overall back in 2000 and 2003, volume was a lot more meaningful than it is today. One of the reasons is a lot of the trading will happen around the options. Okay, around options, and so one of the things you can do is look at option volume. Okay, now the problem with looking at option volume is you don't know whether it's bullish, you don't know whether it's bearish. Look at all these Qualcomm calls here today relative to the puts. Is that bullish? Is that bearish? Well, it depends on how they're structuring their position. Okay, so volume loses a little bit of its significance overall relative to what it was 10, 15 years ago, but still a very important factor. Okay. And then the third thing is understanding whether your stock's in a trend, counter trend, or consolidation. If your stock's in a consolidation mode, Bollingers are contracting, moves around the 7-day moving average aren't going to matter. A bullish move on the RSI or a bearish move on the MACD, who cares? If you're using trend indicators and you're in a consolidation period, there's no significance there. Okay? There's no significance. But if you're dealing with something that is a low volume counter trend, okay, low volume counter trend, you can use something like that to be a buyer because you're buying into an insignificant downtrend. Alrighty. Well, any questions in regards to whether a move's significant or insignificant? Please let us know. I'm oftentimes asked how do you go through so many stocks? As people ask me, well, what do you think of this stock? What do you think of that stock? Essentially, when I look at a stock, you give me a ticker. Let's just take potash for example. Okay. The first thing I do is I look at what's the trend. Okay, and I say it's consolidating. All right, what's it doing recently? Where is it relative to the 7? And is this move significant? Okay, is there any volume? Is there any catalyst? Okay, so I look at something like potash today and I say, you're basically at the upper end of a consolidation period. You are pushing below the 7 here. Is this move significant? Probably not. There's no volume. There's no catalyst. Now, it's not really a significant move. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for hopping on. And any questions, please let me know, and we will talk to you later. Take care.